What red leather, yellow leather, red leather. Yeah.
Oh, this is gonna be great.
Red leather, yellow leather.
That's our intro right there. Just you screaming red leather, yellow leather, and then we
red
start.
leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow
Red leather, yellow leather.
leather. Yeah, it's not as easy as I thought it was. Hi, Joe.
Hello, Jane. How's it going?
Oh, it's going lovely. How are you today?
Today is definitely a Friday.
Oh, is it now?
Yes.
Oh, that's lovely and good to know. Welcome to the Mindly.Social Podcast with Joe and Jane, or Jane and Joe.
Is that the name we decided on?
I don't even know.
It was up in the air, and then we never decided. So
I don't even know that we necessarily need a name. I think we're just gonna shout into the void and hope that somebody hears us.
I like that idea. Yes.
Yeah.
The Shout Into the Void podcast.
Shout Into the Void.
Not the
That's
official
not the
name.
That's not the name of the podcast. We are just gonna open our windows and shout. And hope we get.
And
some
we record
listeners.
until the neighbors get mad.
Well, technically, the neighbors are listeners, so they can just leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever. Listen to your podcasts.
Yeah, I don't even know where to. I guess Spotify is like a thing now.
You know, I'm a big fan of Podcast Addict, but I'm an Android user, and apparently that makes me winner. Well, Joe, how are things going on the instance?
Things are going very well. I had a list of topics and I never wrote them down, so I'm going to wing it.
I have a feeling that this entire podcast is nothing but us winging it.
I had a couple of posts that were in mind that I was like, ooh, I want to highlight these. These are really cool. And I forgot to bookmark them, so they're out there. So we have an interesting instance where if you like treasure hunts, that's our instance. There's lots of little buried treasure out there.
Absolutely.
Especially, there's this one really cool series going on with the Choose Your Own Adventure. That's really cool.
You know how I feel about compliments, Joe.
I know. That's why I wasn't going to call you out, but yeah.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. The Choose Your Own Adventure is going really, really well.
I was extremely shocked. Like the amount of people who don't want to die now. Like in the beginning, I was like, oh gosh, everybody just goes towards the noise. What's happening? But now people are like treating it real, and I like it.
Yeah. People are really engaged. They're having a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm really enjoying writing it.
Yeah, it's really amazing how like you can fit such detailed posts in 500 characters. Like that just blows my mind.
Yeah, I actually feel like, and I told you this the other day, I feel like the constriction of the 500 characters actually really helps me write it, because it's almost like it helps me narrow my focus. And as a writer, that's really helpful because it helps me edit down the things that I don't need. So that's really good in a way. So Mastodon is actually really helping me with my writing. And I am hearing from a lot of writers, not just from me, but from the community itself, that Mastodon has just helped everybody with it, just been inspiring and motivating. And I think that's just really great.
Yes, I've also seen that. I love it when people are like, I took a break from writing and now I'm back into it, and like the words are just flowing onto the page. I'm like, that's awesome. That's how social networking should be. Like, it shouldn't be a constriction. It shouldn't be blocking you.
The community has been such a big help for everyone, I think, because I know even myself, I've had so many people reach out, offer to read my manuscripts, who have offered to help me with my writing block. And I mean, on Twitter, you just didn't see that sort of community. And not only on Mindly, but just on Mastodon, that community seems build really quickly and really strongly. And
Yes, I definitely noticed that.
yeah. So, and speaking of community, uh, how many people are in our community currently?
Last I checked, we were right around 28,000 users. It does fluctuate week to week, so
That's
uh,
amazing, Joe.
that's a huge number. Uh, Considering like November, I want to say like November 5th, we hit like 100 users, and I was like, this is a lot of users.
Do you know
And
how
that's why
many users are on Mastodon currently?
I think we just crossed like I want to say like 8 million, but I think that's wrong. I think we have like 2 million active users a month though, right now.
That's amazing.
And I was actually just looking at the stats this morning. I should have wrote that down.
Eh,
Yeah.
we're winging it.
So 8.3 million accounts currently.
That is amazing.
Yeah, we get like 250,000 every week. Awesome.
That is really amazing.
Yeah. But real quick, back to the writing discussion we were just having.
Yeah.
I'm not a writer myself. I wanted to dabble in it and I just never got into it. But one of the things that I really love is like people who do either writing for a living or just, just writing as a hobby. A lot of people are sharing hints and tips and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I believe you even talked about like character development, stuff like that. And,
Yeah. I'm actually developing right now a character sheet, which can not only be used for fiction writing, but could also be used for screenplays, could be used for nonfiction writing if you develop it that way. And I plan on releasing it for free, because I'm a big proponent of art being free. And one of the things that's really troubling was really troubling for me when I was, out in the writing community outside of Mastodon, was a lot of these character sheets and a lot of things that writers could use, you had to pay for. And
wow.
so one writing sheet I ended up paying like $5 or $10 for, which doesn't seem like a lot of money, but really when you come down to it, it's just kind of a document that, you're writing like the name of your character, what your character's motivations are. And so it's almost like you're developing your own sheet and you're paying for it. And so I don't want artists to have to do that. And so I was creating this character sheet, and some people from Mastodon were like, I asked for help, and they offered their help, and they came in and they said, here are my suggestions. And they were all wonderful suggestions. They were all,
Wow.
And so now we're creating this character sheet, and we're going to be releasing it for free as soon as it's done.
And that highlights what's that?
That was really long-winded. I'm sorry.
No. That really highlights a real, focus on Mastodon that everyone is kind of working towards community.
It's a collaborative effort that
Yes.
you haven't seen on other, even like Tumblr, where collaborative efforts seem to be highlighted more than on other social media sites. Mastodon seems to just blow that out of the water. Collaborative efforts seem to be so much more highlighted on Mastodon than anywhere else.
I think the key with Mastodon is when somebody does good, it raises everybody else up.
Yes.
Whereas like anything with an algorithm, like you want to be really good, you want to be at the top, you want to be at the the first result of whatever search engine or whatever algorithm it is. Mastodon, when everybody does good, or when one person does good, everybody gets better because of it. And like that community is just, there's no incentive to be the best. There is an incentive to help everybody else out though.
And that's not to say that Mastodon doesn't have its downsides. I have definitely seen some things on Mastodon that I wish would change.
I do agree with that, yes.
Yeah. But to say that Mastodon hasn't changed my life for the better would be a lie.
Oh, I completely agree.
Yeah. I definitely think that, I've heard some voices from the Black community that have said that Mastodon has a racism problem. So I don't want to erase that. And I have definitely seen from my own perspective a problem with ableism in the, just from the perspective of a disabled person.
Mhm.
So I don't want to erase those problems, but I also think that, if we're going to talk about the positive, we have to talk about the negative as well.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So those things are, it's a balance.
Hmm.
But I definitely want to be more positive than negative. So even though those things exist on Mastodon, and even though I do want to talk about those things, positivity is really what I want to highlight.
I do agree. And
Yeah.
even with all of the issues that Mastodon has, I believe that it is moving in the right direction.
Right.
Even if it's slowly, it's still at a faster pace than the corporate social media sites, I believe.
Would you say that that's because of the individual moderation, like of the
I
individual servers?
I definitely think that that's a part of it. I think moderation is a tool. I
Mhm.
think that the mindset here is different. I think the
Yeah.
mindset here is the people who are able to make that kind of change they feel empowered to do that, and they don't feel silenced by, I keep saying corporate, but like it is basically, uh, the corporate moderators like at Birdsite and stuff like that. I feel like they do have the ability to make a bigger change here because they have actual control over the situation here. Like I said, though, it is moving slowly because we do have a lot of issues still, but it's moving in the right direction.
What do you think would make it move quicker?
That is a really tough one. There's been lots of discussions currently of basically getting I don't even remember what they call a collective, I guess, of servers together to discuss moderation and how to better, better push the communities in the right direction. I'm on the fence about, that itself, but I think that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes right now where people are trying to get us to where we need to be, where we can all collectively go, hey, we don't want racism on here. This is how we're going to deal with it.
Right.
If you're racist, you're not going to be here, or we're not going to see you. We're not going to hear you type thing.
Right.
I don't think that's, going to happen anytime soon just because of how open the platform is. But there's a lot of people way smarter than me that are actually working on this problem. And I like to see that. It's the ability to even work on the problem is way better than any of the other platforms that I've been on. So
I have a really tough question for you, Joe.
Uh-oh.
I know. So that's how you deal with outright racism, right?
Yes.
Is you're going to get rid of the outright racists, right? You're going to ban them. You're going to get rid of them.
Don't give them a platform. Don't give them a voice. Yep.
Right. How do you deal with the subtle racism?
So that, yeah, that is definitely a tough one just because me as a white guy, I don't have the same perspective as other people. And I rely heavily on people reporting and people, I rely heavily on discussion so I can learn what is actually happening because I do see a lot of threads. I guess they're awareness threads, but a lot of them are like, white people don't reply to this. This is a discussion. You just listen. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a huge part of, fixing the problem is there's a lot of, let me think of how to put this. There's a lot of people like me who are like, I have a say. No, we should listen right now. We should figure out what everyone else is saying and work with them. The conversation part is, one person talks, one person listens. We should be listening right now and figuring out how this problem can be solved, basically. And it's not something that we're going to be able to solve without being able to see it. We need to pay attention. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm sorry, I threw that really tough question at you. First
episode,
Joe.
I've actually had this conversation with a few people, and in terms of like subtle racism and stuff like that is definitely something that I feel that if more instances popped up with more diverse admins and moderators, I think that would make this quote unquote subtle racism more apparent and more visible to people like me who don't realize that that's what it is.
Right.
A good example is like a lot of my friends are always talking about dog whistles, and I honestly can't point them out as easily as everyone else, and I have to have that directly pointed out to me. And that's a problem. I'm an admin of a server and I don't recognize these things. We need people who are also kind of in charge, have some sort of voice in the community that say, hey, this is not right. You need to look at this and this is why it's not right, and explain it to me. And
because as the power, you should be able to recognize when somebody is doing something wrong.
exactly, yes. And my own ignorance should not allow that wrongness to happen. So we need to get rid of that kind of ignorance that I have, that I've never lived with the kind of problems that other people have lived with. So I don't recognize those problems unless it's pointed out to me. And that is definitely a problem.
And I know you feel the same way about sexism and ableism and those sorts of topics as well.
Yes, 100%. So I really love how open our community is, and I love how people share their experiences. And a good example is, I'm drawing a blank on the username right now, but they were talking about how they put on clothes one morning and they shamed themselves out of wearing it. And that's never something I've ever experienced. I've never heard of that before. I was like, wow, that is a real issue. And I talked to my wife about it, and she explained that's what women go through. Women are raised to, hey, you have to look this way, you have to act this way. And that's not something I would have ever known had I not read that post and read their experience and then started talking about it. That was a huge thing for me.
I'm writing things. Clap, clap. I'm clapping
So-
to like cut this out. Clap, clap.
So actually, no, that transitions to a good topic that I wasn't planning on bringing up, but I was discussing, or I had mentioned in passing to somebody yesterday, is alt text. Putting the descriptions for photos and, media in your posts and stuff like that.
Alt text is by far one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people are not putting alt text in their images nearly enough.
Yes.
Drives me absolutely wild, because I saw a post the other day, and I won't name names, but they made the argument that alt text was optional. And at no point is alt text optional, because at no point is visual disability optional. So
I do agree with that. I am guilty of not using alt text when I'm DMing people. If I'm DMing like a friend or something like that.
Right.
I realize that's also not good, because I need to get in the habit of doing it. And in my defense, I do always use alt text when I can. But also at the same time, I need to learn how to use it better, because I feel like my alt text is very basic. I usually put like screenshot of this setting or something like that whenever I'm describing something to people. I really need to do better on the actual description. And
there's a really good resource on Harvard.com. And I'll, when we're done with this and description, the podcast, because we're recording a podcast.
Oh my gosh, the podcast.
But there's a really good resource from Harvard.com, and it's really simplified, and it basically describes to you how to go over alt text and just the basics of it, and what to do, what to put in your alt text, what not to put in your alt text. Generally, you don't want to put screenshot or image of.
Yeah.
You want to keep it really simple, because a lot of screen readers actually have text limits on them. They have character limits.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. So some of them actually have those limits on them. So might not have, sometimes you can't fit all those characters in it and it'll cut it off. And when you're writing those things, they don't necessarily put those character limits in the alt text itself. So you don't know where to cut it off.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to be concise, just to be concise for the, for the reader.
Yes, that is very good information to have.
Right. So I will be sure to put the resource in the description of the podcast and make sure.
So actually, that's really awesome, because I actually told the person who I was talking to about this that I was going to do more research on this, and I would like to do some sort of for lack of a better term, I would like to do some sort of campaign to bring awareness to this alt text and kind of do a big push to get this more standard and more available on Mindly.Social. And I don't want to make it seem like that, the other issues that are going on are not as important. I think that this is the easiest solution that we can solve, is to just get people to use that alt text. Like, it's so simple. It's there. It's built into the thing.
And it's one of those things that when I see an image, even if it's like the funniest image I've ever seen in my entire life, if it doesn't have alt text, I skip right by it. Because it turns me off so much to see an image without alt text that I just can't boost it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to, because at this point, I've committed myself so much to doing better for my fellow disabled community that I don't want to be part of the problem.
That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was posting a meme for somebody to help cheer them up, and I was like, okay, let's put the alt text in there. And putting alt text for a meme,
it's really difficult.
Yeah, it took way more effort than the actual post itself, finding the image, stuff like that. But like, I realized how important that was. So like, I wasn't just going to skip it. I had to do it.
Yeah. And that alt text is not only important, but it's a matter of accessibility, because I want everybody to be able to see that meme.
Yes.
Everybody should be able to see that meme and laugh. And that's just.
Yes, I definitely agree. I hadn't realized it. So this is gonna like jump back and forth between two topics. The lack of algorithm makes me aware of more things than I had ever imagined before.
Yeah.
One of those things is on Mindly.Social specifically, we have a lot of visually impaired users, and I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. That never really crossed my mind on other sites, because that was not in my timeline.
Right.
But now that I see how many we have, I was like, wow, that is,
Do you think that the algorithm on other sites was just like keeping you stuck in your bubble?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
I actually did a video for a friend. I went into going off topic right now. I'm sorry. I went into a discussion though about how like I was just browsing the federated timeline, and I saw a discussion about ham radios, and the discussion was very basic. It was just like, oh, in ham radios, we use CW to stand for something else, but on Mastodon, it's content warning.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just discussing what should we call this other thing, since CW is taken on this platform. And I don't care about the ham radios. I don't really care about their lingo and jargon and stuff like that. But like, I never would have seen that on any other website, because the algorithm was like, you don't care about ham radios. Well, like, what if I did though? Like, what if I saw that and I'm like, that is interesting. I want to go buy a ham radio.
Ham radios are very interesting.
I'm sure they're interesting to people. It's just not my cup of tea, but I'd like the ability to decide that myself though. I don't want an algorithm deciding. Anyways.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're ending this. Red leather, yellow. Red leather, yellow.
Thanks for listening. Be mindly, stay mindful. That's our server motto, by the way.
Is it? What is it?
It's called be mindly, stay mindful.
Oh,
Yeah, somebody messaged that to me and they go, hey, this is, this fits the site good. And I was like, that does. I'm using it.
Somebody else told me that. Probably the same person who told you that.
Yes. Oh, and it's actually the same person who I was having the discussion about alt text with.
Oh, that's interesting. Good
yeah.
for them.
That is awesome.
Okay, I'm ending this. We're ending this.
Cut. Wait,
Cut.
No,
Scene. And
scene, that's it.
Scene.
I love it.
Okay. Thank you for listening to the Mindly.Social Podcast with Joe and Jane. The music of the Mindly.Social Podcast is brought to you by Pixabay. The intro music is Energetic Hip Hop by Skillcell. The background music is Jazzy Abstract Beat by Coma Media. You can find us on Mastodon. Joe is at Mindly.Social /@Cujo. Jane is at Mindly.Social /@Janie. Thank you again and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.